welcome back. It's time to talk money and discuss investments now. We're talking about investment themes for allocators. That's after about a week of conversation by the African Private Capital Association. Well, they took over Lagos. We saw the ministers there. We saw the governor there. We saw angel investors and everyone who even needed the capital. They were right there here in Lagos. So since we couldn't bring you every bit of that meeting that they had over, I think, 3 days or so, we are now speaking with the board chair of African Private Capital Association right here in the studio, Mr. Danladi Verheyen, right here. Good morning, Mr. Verheyen, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So how was it? You guys moved Lagos for days. I think that was before May Day, before the Workers' Day. 3 days you had the who is who from the financial sector. What would you say would be the gains of that? Because we do have meetings and talks every day in the world, even in Nigeria. So what are the high points of your meetings? I know you brought in capital people from all around and all that, but what stands out really?
No, thank you for asking me that question. It was sincerely a very nice event. We had about investors representing about $1.5 trillion in the room in Lagos, just expressing excitement about investing in Nigeria, investing in Africa. And so basically the association is it's called the African Private Capital Association. It's a gathering of investors and business owners and business leaders who are really keen to invest in sustainable businesses across the continent. And this conference, which is held annually, last time it was held in Nigeria was 11 years ago. It moves around different African cities. It's held annually and just brings everyone together to share exciting news, to educate each other on what's going on in our various markets, and to effectively mobilize more capital to come in. In 2024, about $5.5 billion were invested by this industry in over 485 deals, about 485 deals. $4 billion was raised alone for private equity, venture capital, infrastructure investments, and real estate investments. So it's really, really real excitement.
Yeah, well, where there's money, there's excitement, I guess yes. We could say that. But so when you say $5.5 billion invested in 2024, obviously very interesting, but it would be nice to know what sectors, you know, are most attractive at this time. We do know in the country now we have a lot of headwinds. That's our reality in the country, unfortunately. But I mean, Nigeria, it's not just in Nigeria. We have also in other parts of the world. We see these realities. We look at our currency and all. What sectors would you say are the most attractive and get a bulk of these investments?
So the investments in 2024 were literally across the board. Infrastructure, financial services, healthcare, education, technology, literally across the board. And I think this is just going to continue. There is broad excitement across various industry groups. Today, what's very interesting for investors is financial services, investing in banks, investing in insurance companies, investing in pension funds. On the consumer space, of course, leveraging this massive African demographic that we have and a Nigerian demographic as well, with 1.4 billion people across the continent, with 200+ million people in Nigeria who need goods and services. So consumer staples is a very, very interesting sector as well. We're seeing lots of money going to healthcare, the healthcare space, into pharmaceutical manufacturing, pharmaceutical retail, pharmaceutical distribution businesses. It's very, very exciting. Of course, venture capital deals. We see a lot of technology deals. We saw 2 unicorns coming up last year. And just a lot of capital. I think $2.2 billion alone was invested in early-stage technology businesses. So it's really across the board.
And Nigeria is trying to drive the non-oil export. Agriculture, I heard you mention health. Yeah. I wonder how much prominence those sectors are getting.
So investors are quite interested in agri-businesses. You know, how do we stop from exporting commodities, right, effectively? And how do we begin to process our products here locally for both the domestic markets as well as for exports? So we're seeing capital interested in that space. In the pharmaceutical space as well, we're seeing just a lot of money going into, again, like pharmaceutical manufacturing. So we, for instance, supported Emzor. We've supported MedPlus as well. And those are two companies in the pharma space with really, really incredible entrepreneurs and lots of global investors had identified the opportunities that those companies presented and effectively invested in them via us and just supported the entrepreneurs to continue to grow their businesses. Just trying to achieve, getting Nigeria to a position where, you know, people can access high-quality drugs at lower costs.
But the issue of infrastructure, you know, always gives Nigeria a level of weakness competing with the world, because what it does is it drives up capital costs, it drives up operational costs. So I wonder if infrastructure is also in focus.
Infrastructure certainly is in focus as well. And there's, you know, there's standard infrastructure of your roads, your ports, your bridges,
power,
you know, railway, power, right? There's also digital infrastructure, right? We're seeing a lot more base stations, so telco base stations being built. I think Nigeria needs another 30,000 telco base stations. We're seeing more coming into play. We're seeing data centers as well. Money is pouring into all of these sectors. I think we may not be as aware of everything that's going on, but things are definitely changing.
I guess we just want to see the results. And you wouldn't blame us for that.
You know, what's interesting on that point is, I think for those of us who are here, we don't see the results, or we don't perceive that there's change happening, because I think we want change to happen a lot faster. Or probably because we're in the situation, we don't really recognize it.
We're too close to see.
But it's very interesting, the foreign investors who came into Lagos this week were all talking about how things were different, right? In ways that the Nigerians had not really identified. So they can see the differences and changes. They can see more infrastructure. They can see, you know, many were telling me it was just easier to get through our airports, right? There are more restaurants. There's more activities, right? They are seeing a lot more demand for this capsule. I'd say they were more optimistic than we were, right? Which is a shame. So I think there's a lot here for us, and optimism drives investments. Optimism drives change. The U.S. has branded itself successfully as, you know, a place where you can chase your American dream. The truth is, more than half of the U.S. population is very, very far away from that dream that they've branded themselves with. What we need to start talking more about is the Nigerian hope, because there's a lot of that locally. There's a lot of opportunities locally. And we need to discuss that more and not wait for others to come in and tell us how great this nation is and how there's so much potential here. So I think the narrative needs to change.
Okay, maybe we'll ask national orientation to help us better and all of that. But, so talking to entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, and, you know, individuals trying to get funding, they talk about government policy inconsistency. And this has been a discouraging factor. I wonder if that fear or concern came up in the course of your interaction with these investors.
I'd say that's certainly been a concern. But first of all, two things. One, it's not unique to Nigeria, right? Around the world, there are policy changes. I mean, the whole world has gone up in a bit of turmoil with policy changes in the US, right, on a tax issue. So it's not unique to Nigeria. But I think what's always important is to say, what are the trends, right? Are things getting better, right? I think that's what investors look at. And absolutely, you can say in Nigeria that things are certainly getting better. We're seeing on the monetary policy side, return to orthodox monetary policies, right? And that has led to just a lot of stability in our currency over the last couple of months, and that we expect to continue. I mean, the impact of that is huge. And again, I think for us, we don't really recognize it. We think of the pain in the past, and that pain still sits deep within us. But there are changes going on. On the fiscal side, there are lots of reforms going on as well, right, across different sectors. Maybe, I think all of us are impatient, and we would like things to move faster, but I think we have to look at the trends, and things are certainly getting better on that side.
All right.
I think it'll take a while to trickle down to the micro, right?
Which is where the larger number is.
Absolutely. That will take a while, but it is certainly happening.
All right. You also brought up the issue of pension funds, engaging pension funds more, you know, in this search for capital.
Yes. So one of the key challenges that we have as an industry is we've primarily been supported by foreign investors, right? So they've given us dollars to invest across the continent. As you know, a lot of our currencies have been devalued over the last couple of years, which has led to difficult returns, should I say, right? But what we all need to do is access capital from the local pension funds, right? Local pension funds are primarily invested in government securities, and it's not hard to see why. Interest rates are very high, right? Government securities are risk-free, they're liquid, and they're also tax-free, right? But what does private equity offer? What does infrastructure offer? What does venture capital offer? What does real estate investment firms offer? They offer diversification, which is also very important for pensioners, right, to ensure that the pension money is diversified. They offer actually long-term returns, right, that are higher than government securities or higher than the stock markets over a long period of time. But it takes a while. It's a slow process.
But they also bring risks.
There's certainly risk. There's risk.
And pension money is very sensitive money.
There's risk, and there's risk because of volatility. But again, if you look over a long period of time, private investments have outperformed public investments over a long period of time. So what we're saying is, don't allocate 50% of the asset class to private companies, right? But also, don't allocate only 0.1%. How about starting with 3% or 5%? It's not a huge number, right? But it will definitely help to, again, diversify the portfolio and increase the alpha in portfolios.
All right. Well, you just assume office as the board chair of the association. I wonder what you have up your sleeves.
I'm filling some very big shoes in the association. It was certainly an honor to be made the chair of the board, one that I don't take lightly at all. And working with the rest of the board, I think, some of the things we're trying to do is, attract a lot more capital to Africa. And maybe it goes back to what I was saying early on about, talk about the positives about the continent and speaking to investors, global investors from different parts of the world and trying to get them to come into Africa. Because I think they see the opportunity from afar, but we need to tease them and make them come here, right, and see it.
But have you looked within Africa? Because with all that's happening, especially from the U.S., there's more talks now about AfCFTA, intra-Africa trading. Are you doing anything intentionally to push that?
We're doing both, yes. So I just started off talking about just attracting investors, because we need the capital to continue to develop, while we're also working with the local pension funds, as I mentioned, right? The second thing is also, we do a lot of advocacy work as well, right? And there comes in pushing on various reforms that could help enhance business and enhance trade. The AfCFTA is also extremely helpful because we have actually very small fragmented markets, and that whole idea of trying to unify and create a one large single dominant market will make it a lot more attractive for businesses as well as investors coming in. What we also do is convene, and have this convening conferences once a year where we bring investors and private equity fund managers and companies together such that people can strike deals, right? And we can hopefully, sign documents and make sure that more capital comes into the continent.
Yeah, especially intentional. And you're working with the government, so the minister was there, I think the governor was there, and all the VIPs from the public sector. How much government involvement do you have?
As an association, we try to work with government, and we have a lot of interactions. And there's just really trying to understand government policies and making some suggestions here and there. Thus far, it's been a very good relationship. Yes, we had a minister with us who delivered some really well-received remarks. So we've had a lot of support, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
All right, thank you so much, and we wish you the best as you assume this office, board chair of African Private Capital Association, Mr. Danladi Verheyen.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be here.